Hi everyone and welcome to my fan commentary on the Omega Project. So this is the first episode of Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue after Ryan had been in the team, but he had to leave the team for the remainder of the season until like the end. So the remaining episodes between here and Rise of the Super Demons. So this is a long stretch where Ryan is not with the other Rangers. Around this period, I think this is when they started to focus more on the five main Rangers more again, while Ryan is the one who had to be the most proactive of the bunch, and it seemed like they didn't really need Ryan anymore. It's not like, with Tommy when he joined the team and when his Green Ranger powers were slowly fading from Rita's green candle, he would lose his powers and he wouldn't come back until like a certain point in the series. So every time I watch this episode, part of this episode reminds me a little bit of the Craterite invasion episode from In Space with the little boy Patrick. But Simon is at least somewhat competent than Patrick from that episode because, boy, I never really liked that Patrick kid, that black boy Patrick from that one-off episode of In Space when he, that episode where he was always telling lies that he saw monsters to his friends and then when it came to the Craterites, well, and him making lies got him in a lot of trouble. But Simon has Simon, which is Joel's, supposedly nephew or something, or little cousin, is at least competent, and he likes astronomy and meteors and all. Speaking of which, about the Omega Megazord, because this is the episode that debuts it. Because I remember when the Omega Project aired, and after I had already seen Trakeena's Revenge, aka the Triple Force thing, VHS that I got from McDonald's when Lightspeed Rescue had their Happy Meals. And I'm surprised that their Happy Meal toys lasted 3 months to sell. But when the Omega Megazord was introduced in that crossover episode with them and the Galaxy Rangers, them introducing, looking at this episode and the episodes where they do use the Omega Megazord, taking a break from the Lightspeed Megazord or the Super Train, they really should have never spoiled the Omega Megazord and the Megazords in general. And you see, that was a big fault on my behalf as a kid looking back on Lightspeed Rescue when it aired, is that they had to debut all the stuff. Yeah, the battle boosters they introduced in that. I mean, Carter used his battle booster against Olympius in a fight when the Galaxy and Lightspeed Rangers were fighting, and Trakeena was about to mutate again until Olympius used that poisonous dagger. Because around this period of the season, this episode 20 years ago didn't air yet. And looking back on it on the day or so when it did air after Lightspeed Rescue came back from its brief and short summer hiatus, and I remember it was around this time 20 years ago, Lightspeed Rescue was only on hiatus for like 2 months during its summer. When it came back, it was from its hiatus, it was only in August. August for all things. Oh, and Koichi Sakamoto directed this episode. So it seems like any episode Koichi Sakamoto does that he directed for Power Rangers is always a good episode. Yeah, even Koichi Sakamoto can direct some stinkers. Even Judd Lin, Jonathan Zacher, and them did too in the past. Oh, what gets me is when Simon contacts Joel through his morpher, and then Captain Mitchell sees him with a pair of flowers, and knowing of the fact. See, that's another thing I can't stand about Joel, is that every time when the Rangers are on missions, his mind is on trying to woo Miss Fairweather with flowers and chocolates and all that. And, well, I get it. And then you're going to give him the Captain Mitchell. What I liked about this episode, then, the Craterite invasion from Power Rangers in space, at least this one-off kid isn't as overbearing or annoying. He just wants the Rangers' help because knowing, those of Lightspeed Rescue to know that a meteor is about to crash Mariner Bay and the entire Earth. Unlike in that episode again that I mentioned from In Space with that kid Patrick again. For only just a kid, Patrick is kind of smart. Well, his child actor at the time anyway. All that scientific hoodoo and all that hoodad about how, man, even heck, I'm not even that great in math and science when I was in school. Is it permissible to bring any family members to the Aqua base? When they adapted the episode where the Omega Megazord go up into space to destroy the meteor, they didn't, Gogo 5 didn't had a little kid in the plot of the episode. From what I saw from the Sentai. Basically, Simon is so slick, he goes into one of the computers just to... Maybe he should have been to another computer room to figure out where the meteor is coming. But there's no other room where a computer... Well... I think the reason why he was on that computer is just to warn the Rangers that the meteor is really coming. But since the demons are or in the underworld, how can they summon a meteor from space to hit the Earth? That makes no sense to me. And even from the logic from this and in Gogo 5 when they did it. Some of the stock footage of that meteor will be used in one of the opening cutscenes for the Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue video game for the original PlayStation, which I still have 20 years later. Too bad that Lightspeed Solar Zord configuration and the Lightspeed Megazord wasn't in the PlayStation 1 game when I had it and when I was still playing it. Now, I don't even know if this improves over the original Sentai episode, but it's still the same footage from that episode, but they just had Simon, that one-off little kid, wanting the Rangers and the Aqua Base's help to get the rescue Zords or something to take it up into space to destroy it. Just makes no sense on my behalf, because even though after we had 2 long space-themed seasons with very strong space-themed villains, who would think that a demonic black magic villain like Queen Banshira would summon a massive meteor shower to try to destroy part of the Earth? It doesn't make no sense. You know, Olympius is okay, but he has nothing on Darkonda or DVI for me. What kind of calculator is that? I know it's not a TI-83 calculator because that calculator is so freaking expensive. Okay, so they return to the Aqua base and use the Megazords now. Basically the entire thing that we devoted this whole episode for. You can briefly see Viper's Sentai counterpart's face in the footage with the villains. They have been doing that a couple of times whenever they switch from US footage to the Japanese footage of the villains, the demons. It's been a common thing I've noticed whenever I rewatch Lightspeed Rescue. And here we go. It's, you know, emulating the bit of that footage from the opening credits we keep seeing all the time with the Rangers on that platform that's lowering them down like an elevator. Yep, that footage right there. And then into the Super Train rail rescues with the Megazords inside. One of the common things I've noticed looking back on something like this from Lightspeed Rescue is that while, despite that In Space and Lost Galaxy were so successful with the space opera theme, Lightspeed Rescue could have been another space-themed season because they got a Solar Zord that goes up into the air and up to by the sun, and then the Megazords are like spacecraft, but due to everything being done on Earth, that's why this is another space theme season, because I kind of do miss it when Power Rangers, and I think this is probably why any Power Rangers after Lost Galaxy started with seasons like this. This is why for the last 20 years I've been having some issues with the series being back on Earth, and I get that, you know, after that massive incident with Lost Galaxy and what happened with Terra Venture, a lot of seasons after it has to be on Earth, and, you know, because there's certain forces of evil that are on Earth but are like, let's say for like the demons and the underworld, you know, Netherrealm villains and Mystic Force have to be, you know, demonic black magic themed. Or in like Time Force, you know, mutants from the future, but, you know, Earth from the future. Even with RPM in their dimension, with Venjix's virus and his army of robots in their dimension. So I guess it makes sense for a lot of seasons after Lost Galaxy to go back to Earth, because it's been 2 long years after what happened with that massive alien invasion and stuff and Countdown to Destruction and everything that's happened and transpired since Power Rangers in space. But here, this is the only time they'll go up in the space with the Megazords just to destroy the meteor. But since Lightspeed Rescue is technically not a space theme season, but their Megazords are based off that of spacecraft, that's something that the Space Rangers could have used. Unless my theory is how Lightspeed Rescue created these Zords, they probably took recycled parts or so of the Mega Voyager that the Space Rangers had, and probably took scraps of the Mega Voyager to create this. And also what I loved about the Megazords is that it, you know, you got the individual Zords that are just individual ship-like Zords. Then you got them in this crawler with the ladder arms sticking out of the legs, which, okay. And then you got the hands that, you know, spin around like drills, which is used less often. This was just only a gimmick for this episode. And then after from being a crawler, then it stands up into Megazord mode. I remember having the Omega Megazord as a toy when I was a kid, like the deluxe version. I really love the Omega Megazord. It's still one of my favorite Megazords from the season. You know, among the 4 primary Megazords of Lightspeed Rescue, I'm kind of torn over what is my favorite Zord from this season. This, the Super Train, the Lightspeed primary Lightspeed Megazord, or the Max Solar Zord. I mean, again, the only interesting thing I loved about Lightspeed Rescue for the last 20 years was the Zords. But because that's what made me love the season, was the Zords, because of how militaristic and such they were based. And aside from a train, a 5-piece train that can go up into the air and say, "Taste the rainbow, mother F," when you go up into the air with it. And who would have thought a train that the military of Lightspeed Rescue base can fly up into the air and be like, "Taste the rainbow." Basically, from the Sentai footage of Go-Go 5, that already foreshadowed Tokuger with train-themed Zords that, well, not really. And even the Solar Street Megazord and Mystic Force. This was a similar incident that happened back when the Space Rangers got their Mega Voyagers, when Astronema sent her monster to go after the Rangers on the moon with the Mega Voyager Zords. But except there is no monster attack in this episode. I think another positive I'll give the Omega Project episode, there is no monster fight. It was just the Rangers' brief fight with Olympius, but the main focus is try to take down this meteor that Queen Banshira summoned for the Rangers to obliterate and strike down so it won't attack the Earth. And with the Omega Megazord rising up from the crawler mode to the Megazord formation, that seemed epic. It still is epic 20 years later when you look at it. And I think that shuttle piece for the staff of the Omega Megazord, oh wow, Oscar clip with the explosions and everything around it. And it's incredible. But it still is better than the explosive stuff we get from Michael Bay's movies. But I think that shuttle piece to the staff of the, looks like the Mega V3 Zord that Carlos had for the Mega Voyager. Also, that dramatic slow motion, no, that is so, well, again, Power Rangers back then, they were still doing mature storytelling. So with Lightspeed Rescue, see, the way how they did that slow motion, when this happened also in Go-Go 5, because this is in the footage from that episode, where they felt that the Rangers had died in the explosions with the meteor. But luckily, thank God they survived, because that was a dangerous mission they did, and that, yeah, it was indeed successful. So I would give this episode that. Another common thing I never brought up in terms of them using Sentai footage of Go-Go 5 with the Rangers, like especially within the Megazord cockpits, that whenever I see, in Go-Go 5 with the Megazord, footage of the Rangers and the Zords, you always, in the original Sentai, we always saw the Go-Go 5's faces with their visors open, and you see the masks piece to the helmets visible with the visors open, and you see their faces, mostly the eyes and the upper part of their noses. But in Lightspeed Rescue, they had to edit around the footage to edit out any footage of the Rangers, the Sentai counterparts, with their visors completely closed. So sometimes, in most cases, when they would do Megazord battles in Lightspeed Rescue via Sentai footage, they had to mostly cut out footage of them in the Megazord cockpits because their Sentai counterparts' faces were shown. So they would always just focus on the fights with the Zords, fighting the Demon, or Diabolico in that case, or when Diabolico and Olympius was Super Demons later. And see, basically, now this ending part with Joel hoping he would get a date with Fairweather, what gets me is Simon dating her. But Simon is only a kid. I mean, that's what I don't get, because it seems like that's one of the common things I don't get with Joel in his character and his crush on Miss Fairweather. I've discussed this a couple of times. But yeah, that was the Omega Project. It's a great, solid episode to introduce the Omega Megazord, but the whole stuff with Simon and Joel is debatable on anyone's part.